We're conspiring to beat the game of crypto right now.
Well, we're winning.
Oh, yeah, we're winning.
We're
Yeah, we
winning.
just got to keep winning.
We will.
Goal is to continue to win.
I mean, people got to realize this is just the start. Like, we've got green candles. We're above SAC, Pulsechain. Hex is pumping. Hex is looking beautiful, especially if you're staked out. It's literally like Richard just told us, the only people that get rich is the people that get in early are the founders. Well, everyone here is early right now. We're all so early.
So look, you first we got to evaluate probability, right? Like, what is the chances of success? What is like, and then you consider all sorts of things like product market fit, like who's behind this, like have they have any record of success, all this stuff. Well, I'll talk about probability a little bit more. That's kind of my thing. Like I started out just as an analyst, and so then you have attention, which is what X is, right? Which is what all your Telegram groups are, which is what all of the everything around getting the word out. That's attention, right? And there's action, which means actually doing something, right? Because you can know all the stuff, you could know all the math, you could chart it all out, you can know all the right people, be in the right groups, and just never do anything or do the wrong freaking thing, and there's no result, right? The display is still zero; it's a blank screen, So when we look at like something like Pulse Chain and we consider like, well, what is the probability that there's actually any value here? Well, let's look at something that's similar to it. And this is what pisses everybody off about, what Richard says as far as like, oh, it could do a 10,000x. Well, why is he saying that? Because he took something that was very similar. Like, for example, like you comp it to something that's known from before. So if you comp it, comp one token to another token that both have similar characteristics in that they're not rugged. Here's what they can do, right? And then people get all pissed off that, oh, how do you know that? You must be DOA. But you look at Pulse Chain, what are we going to comp it to? Well, we're going to comp it to all the other L1s, right? So clearly, like the probability of it having value is really damn high because all the other ones have a lot of damn value in them.
Hell yeah.
Now you look at the
Richard said that he sees no reason that Pulsechain couldn't do a 13,000x. Now, that not saying that's going to happen in this bull run, but 2 to 4 years after Pulsechain launch, it's possible. I mean, it's really not that unfathomable if you look at the others.
fathomable at all. Like here's what I was here's the example with probability, right? So at some point we're looking, everybody's kind of like, not so happy with the price performance. We got it late into the year, you want to have a little extra at the end of the year. You're thinking about presents, going on vacation, doing something for yourself or people around you, and the price is still down. You look at the bridge balance and you're at like 80 million, 60 million, 70 million, right? And you got to look at that and you have to at that point tell yourself, like, what is the probability that this thing is actually worth a lot more than $60 million? There's houses that are $60 million. This thing is going to live on into infinity and serve millions of people. What is the probability that something like that is going to be worth more than $60 million? See, at this
I would say
point is when you
100%.
should start cooking.
I'd say 100%
A
probable.
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%. Like this is like, so I try not to make like price calls and all that stuff because I think it's corny. But in October, like late in October, I pointed out, I was like, all right, well, it looks like we're finally out of this downtrend. Now's the time to go. All right, but obviously nobody listens because you're not perceiving any results on the charts. Like the price is going up, but it's like like 5%, 3%. It goes back down. Like it's like, but see, like these are the moments where you begin to realize, just like the story with the GameStop stock, right? This guy did his homework and said, there's the probability that this thing is worth way more than it's being valued at is like infinity, right? And so he became a multi-millionaire off of this one decision. But the problem is, in those moments where the probabilities are so clearly in your favor, your attention is on the wrong thing. This is the problem. This is what always happens every single time because you're looking for something different, right? Like not the thing that makes the most sense. You want the thing that's doing what you already want to be, right? So like that's where people get all sorts of sidetracked and they go, oh, well, this thing's already pumping, so I got to go to that thing. But you never stop to realize that, well, that other thing actually has no value. Nobody cares about it for more than like a week. Like people start looking around when their bags aren't doing that good. They start thinking, oh, well, where else can I go? Where else can I go? Right? The party's kind of dead here. Like, where else can we go? So, be very careful with what you actually are paying attention to. Like this is a big reason I put out like the NFT thing. I kind of trolled the NFT guys the other day, is that you guys have the zeitgeist of the attention economy. But when everything is down, guess who's always still on spaces? It's always the NFT bros. They're always still here because they're creating value on a daily basis. That's their goal. That's what they're doing, right? So there's no day for them that's a day they don't feel like doing that. That's why they're always here. And so, like, you do that long enough, you're consistent enough about that, well, you become, sort of like the center of that, the center of the cryptosphere, let's just say. How do we stay in the loop? Well, like, the hardest part of all of this is actually taking action. This is the hardest part of all of it. Like, I can't tell you how many people have watched these charts go up and up and up and up and do nothing, or down and down and down and down and do nothing. And I'm not talking about the people who are staked because their intention was to do nothing. It's a little bit of a different situation. But everybody who's like who ended up complaining that things didn't work out for them, well, did you take any action, or did you go on Twitter and about it? Because it's hard at that point where you make a decision. It's on you. There's nobody else in the world that's clicking that ledger or that whatever that button for you. You have to do it yourself. And that's the hardest part, and I feel you guys. Like, I get why it's really hard to kind of like make this call a lot of the time. But what's crazy is that we've had more buyers come in at prices that are double what they were less than a month ago. Happily came in and hit buy, when the price is already double.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Like being part of a community where you kind of do it together, and it's like a little bit more like friendly, I would say. Even though I'm sure there's still competition like amongst factions and all that, but at least you guys are doing something.
Competition creates a healthy market, though. So
The market
you
figures
need the
itself out.
competition. You need it. You want it. You should thrive on that. That should inspire you. It makes you better in the long run.
So yeah, I like exactly what this conversation is great. It's not only just competition though; it's variety, right? Because in communist Soviet Union, you only had one flavor of soda, and you had to like put quarters into a machine, and like everyone had to use the same cup. But anyways, the great thing about a free and open marketplace is that actually you have different things, right? Like on Pulsechain, we have Pulse, which is your gas token. We have Hex, which is your store of value. Pulsex, which is your, so on and so forth, right? The DEX token. So yeah, like you got different strokes for different folks. But yeah, I understand like Hex is like the king and stuff. But yeah.
Because look, we have new people that are trying to ramp up into this space. They're coming into like they're coming in above SAC. That's when I got everyone's attention. And this is how I knew when everyone started dumping, there are people who dumped billions, like tens of billions of pulse before we got to SAC price. And I'm just watching these wallets just dump like 400 million, 500 million, like multiple times a day. Like they're trying to time these candles. They're like, selling down the wicks. Like they're trying so hard to play themselves out of actual abundance and wealth for the rest of their lives because, oh, it's almost at this SAC price. Like, what is the SAC price? Like, why did we ever agree that that is some sort of valuation of this chain or this asset? It's not. It's just what you got it. It's just what most people got it for. That doesn't mean that's what it's worth. You got to imagine, like, if you give somebody an X amount of dollars and you come back 2.5 years to get it, are you going to want more money or less money or the same amount? Like, you're going to take interest. Why on earth wouldn't you take interest? Like, you already waited 2.5 years and you are literally the person. Why? The reason why the price isn't moving higher, because as soon as it gets there, you dump 2 billion pulse on it. Like, you're literally like punching yourself in the face. Like, stop.
That's what Richard
And
wanted,
so
though. Richard wants to weed these people out. Weed them out.
this price would be double what it is right now if it wasn't for these one or two people, one or two players. I assure you right now that it's that much of an impact that this sort of thing has. Like, just because one person decided to dump, it was more than 10 billion pulse like onto the market. It got eaten up real quick. It didn't even take more than a couple of days. Now people are jumping in 50, 60. There's 100 grand, 300 grand, whatever. They're just trying to slam orders in. There were so many orders being slammed into Pulsex today that you could barely use it. Like that's how crazy this. Like I think that maybe we did hit like a little local top at least for maybe not. It could just rip right through. What day is it? It's Monday. Yeah, it's only Monday. Well, let's see what goes on towards the end of the weekend or towards the weekend. But yeah, like this price could have already been double by now. Like that's how crazy it is. So I guess we should be grateful that it's going to give more people an opportunity. But look, like you're gonna have a lot of people coming around that have all been naysayers, never believed in anything Richard did, but now that they see the green candles, we have their attention. They couldn't do the math, they couldn't figure out the probability, they couldn't take action, they couldn't do any of that. But now we have their attention. And here's the problem with a lot of this stuff. Here's like the real alpha you guys have to know. Markets abhor uncertain change. So I'll give you an example. I forget which month this was. And it didn't really coincide. Trap, do you remember when the GoPulse tokens first launched?
Go Pulse.
Remember, so they put up the generator on their site. What month was that?
That was
It was
probably 2-3 months after Pulse came,
Gary. What's
where
his
they
face?
could just create, or people could create their own contract and launch whatever.
Funding Jib made those influencer coins around the time of what you're saying. I'll try to find his post, but I want to say it's like late June, early July.
I think it was. I think it was. And then, so we ended up getting a drawdown after that point. And so, why did the market draw down after this goal post? Because it got a lot of people's attention. People were hyped on it. We had all these new influencer coins and all of this stuff. Well, it's really easy to understand if you think about it. It's because it presents uncertainty as to where capital will flow. So if you're familiar with this sort of ecosystem, you kind of understand that people buy Hex, people buy Pulse, Pulsex, Inc. Like that's shit that people buy. Now you go out and you list thousands or hundreds of these new tokens, some of them with like really cool influencers that have a lot of people's attention, right? Like so they get their message out. They can people will see it, and it creates an uncertainty as to like where this capital will go. And the way markets react to that is usually just by dumping everything out and seeing where the chips fall, and then and then sort of falling back into what the best time value for their money actually is. And so even though it seems like pretty innocuous, like, oh yeah, these are just like generated tokens, like no, like all of this stuff factors in, like every single bit of it. Like you get obviously like, everyone understands that when the SEC case against Richard got made public July 31st, the market completely sold off, right? Well, why would everyone in such a coordinated way on that day just decide to completely devalue this asset? Like this asset is not going to change whether or not he's not going to prison, obviously, but even if he did, like the value of this asset would not change whatsoever. Like at least in my opinion, like, and maybe Richard in a way has proven that in the fact that he's been like rather absent from the scene. Like I get that he still makes content, he's still around, obviously, but this is just how markets are. And so what's going to happen, what the next step is going to be is you're going to have a bunch of new players coming into the game, and what do you think the market's going to do?
He knows that the hexagons and pulsicans are kind of easy to bait, and there's a lot of us, right? And we bring engagement.
Yeah, dude, people forgot, man. People forgot what the Hexagon community actually is. Like whatever you buy, whatever you hold, wherever you go to dinner, whatever kind of, it doesn't matter. Like once the message goes out, like on Hex or on Pulse Chain, and I mean you start seeing those green candles, people get hyped. Like there is no one who sends a signal more than this community. Like nobody. Like my
Bro, we
entire
come in
timeline.
mass. We come in mass.
It's insanity, dude. Like you couldn't pay for this kind of promotion. I don't even know how much it would cost you to do something to like accomplish something like this. And it's because it's this decentralized thing. Like people just so many people are receiving value from this that they're happy to come on here and post memes, make tweets, whatever, like make content. Like it's insane. Like the volume of it, like you just don't find this at anywhere. Like this is what makes Hex Hex. You guys have to understand. Yeah, the staking is awesome. The APY is incredible. The compounding, all this stuff. But that's not what Hex actually. Hex is this beacon that so many people believe in, that once that like I said, like once that message goes out, like you're gonna see it. I don't care who you are, it's gonna come up in your feed. Like that's the power of Hex. Like and then all the good things, the fact that it's an actual product.
When we venture out, when someone ventures out to a non-Hex pulse chain community related, and if they start getting heat, the numbers that just show up, it could be your friend or your foe, the amount of people that will show up and represent and have your back just on the whim, that I think is huge. It's huge. And then the more people that participate, then you got more, because people see, oh, this guy I follow just commented on this, let me go jump in. And then it's mass numbers always. I mean, look at like anytime like Rand or Ivan on Tech or any of those guys will tweet something about like, oh, my buddy hit me up, wants to put 100 grand, just go look at the comments. It's constantly Hex, Pulse, Pulsex. It's unreal, man. It's unreal.
Everybody gets into this like, oh, I'm just a person, I'm not anything special, I'm just I don't have that much reach. But yeah, when you put that all together and we kind of get that like camaraderie and support of each other, you can't beat it. The difference between like fighting for your own land and like being commissioned to do something. You're just never going to fight as hard. That's
And
what this
then
is.
think about, we have no centralized listings yet for Pulse and Pulsex. None. So, and look how hard we go. Look how the volume that we'll bring to people. Like imagine if we had that, C5, I guess, what do we call it? C5 marketing, Imagine if we had
No,
that.
but
Like, we're
here's
doing
how you
this
know.
all independently.
Completely coordinated gatekeeping, because not even one of them has lists. Not even one. Not even one. You're telling me that if we could sort of all deduce this information, and come to a conclusion, you're telling me that none of the people who do that for a living, who see tokens every day, all day, not one of them saw the value proposition here? Not one?
Well, I think they see it. I think they see it, and I think they own Hex, they own Pulse, they own Pulsex, they own a lot of stuff, but they got to get in early. They got to get in early. That way they're going to want to dump on their users' head, because that's what they've always done.
Here's the problem. It's come one, come all. Because if one of them lists it, if one of them recognizes it, they all have to do it. So this is what the whole gatekeeping thing is very, very real. And so it's been a concerted effort for none of them to acknowledge any of these products and any of the Richard Hart ecosystem. Because if one of them did, they would all have to do it. They would all have to capitulate to it. And in a way, they would be proving Richard right. And I think that's the most painful thing for a lot of these people to do, because you have to remember, all these people know each other. They all go way, way back. Like, crypto started out as like a small group of people who were really outsiders to a lot of shit. And then like, obviously Joe Lubin comes along and like some of these other characters, and they kind of build companies around it. And then basically everyone who came up through the Ethereum Foundation has their own protocols now and like all this kind of stuff. Like it's a very small world, and I think for whatever reason, they just did not want to acknowledge any part of this idea, because maybe like true decentralized finance was never really their goal. Maybe their goal was more so to trick you into giving them your money. Like maybe that was more so the goal, and they just find more and more clever ways to accomplish that. So
I think a lot of like the big influencers, it has to do with the C-Fi and the money, the sponsorships. That's what I personally think. They want that big money. They want that big money coming in, not the DeFi guys. Because I mean, we're not gonna pay for Rand. We're not gonna pay Altcoin Daily. We're not gonna do a sponsorship, and that's where they make their money. They're consistent. Their salary, I would say, I would call it their salary. That's where they make their salary, is on all these sponsorships. Look at Fat Boy, what's his name? Ben. I don't know. He goes by Ben now. Is it just Ben, or is it Bit Boy? Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Where do you think all his money comes from? Sponsorships.
Whatever happened with Ben, somebody's cup was not full. Something happened there that we probably don't even know about. But this is the dark side of crypto. It's just that it's very hard to see someone else's cup full when yours isn't. Very hard, especially if you're working together every day or whatever. I don't know the whole story behind it. The whole thing is super, super weird. But the beautiful thing about this, and the whole concept of this, is that you don't need to rely on anyone. So don't rely on Richard. Did the SAC address move in like a umpteen $1 million, and then that cascaded into 10, then 15, then 20, then 30 million, then 35 and 40 million? Yeah, like he lit the fuse. Like, okay, but did you need to rely on that? Like, no, but it happened and it's awesome, right? Like the bottom line is that crypto is designed to do is to take away you needing to rely on other people for anything. You go to a bank, you don't realize that you're completely relying on their third-party software providers, their database architects, their hosting services, their blah 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 blah, like down the line, down the line, down the line. You just don't. It's not in front of you, so you can't acknowledge it. It's hard to acknowledge. But the reality is that like the way traditional finance is set up is to put so many layers between you and what you own that it doesn't even work anymore. And like when you go into what the laws actually are around this stuff, you don't even own any of it. Like you don't even own your own money that you put into the bank. Like how I can't believe this has even been normalized. Like this is so
Yeah,
absurd.
go to the bank. Go to the bank and try to withdraw 50,000, 55,000, 60,000.
But yeah, like here's the main point that I want to get to sort of like relay, like pass on this little bit of information to you guys. Like while we're all super hyped and we're all kind of doing the right thing by getting more and more people involved in this ecosystem, you have to remember that like let's just say I don't know Yazan, right? But I'm just gonna make like a completely stereotype version, and we'll call him, I don't know, Tony. All right, like let's just say like somebody who's been in crypto a long time, has quite a bit of pull, has quite a bit of influence, it has big bags, all of this stuff, decides to start moving him and his entourage and his crew of people into a space. Well, what is Tony going to want to do? He's going to want to take your money. That's the only reason that they make any moves whatsoever in the first place. Like you have to remember that as much as these people are like kind and smiling and posting NFTs and doing all this cool stuff in front of you, in the back rooms, they're just trying to figure out ways to take your money. This is always the case. There's the only person who doesn't do this is probably Richard Hart. And you can and maybe this is why he's so hated, because they don't understand. They're like, why, Richard? Like you could have all these people over for like $2 billion. It's like, what is wrong with you? Why wouldn't, like, you didn't take any of it? Oh, the car you took you at least got the car, right? Oh no, you paid for the car on your, like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even compute to them, because this is the kind of behavior that like they engage in. Like when you look at someone like Eric Wall, he can't understand the fact that people will lock up their coins for a future in order to be able to claim them in a future date, in order to not be able to sell the price down. For him, this a social agreement that I will not hurt the price for this amount of time, right? It doesn't compute. It's a scam. How on earth is it a scam? Did you know when you buy a Ferrari, like these really exotic Ferraris, like the ones that are one or two of in the, or whatever, like double digits of in the world, you can't sell them. Like your Ferrari is staked by Ferrari. You can't sell them. Like this is how it goes. This is why the values of them are
Yeah,
so crazy high. Nobody can get them. Go
dude,
ahead,
I've
Trav.
seen. Look, with the people with Ferrari, like talk about the Ferrari, like how it's just like they control it. Like you buy one from an auction, if you got to replace, like let's say you buy one totaled from auction, you have to go through so many hoops and hurdles just to get replacement parts.
You can barely wrap it and tint the windows. But this is what drives value, you guys. Value is something that's like unobtainium. Like, why would a car ever be worth millions of dollars when you can go get a perfectly good car for 60 grand, 50 grand? You can get a nice Porsche, like, drive your head off. It's not going to cost you $1 million. Like, this is how value is created when it becomes rarefied, when it becomes, difficult to get. Like this is the whole point of it. Like right now, everyone's like hating on the price of Hex. Go try to put 10 grand into Hex and go see what the price is. I'm telling you, like it's hard to even accumulate it. This is why people are sort of holding back now, kind of going like, what do we do here? People are buying like P Hex because you can get in and out at at tighter ranges. You're not pushing the price up so much. Like to buy $100,000 worth of like EHEX right now, like you're gonna move that price like a lot. It's just how it goes. Like this is what happened on Pulsechain. Like why did the price pump so high? Because all the liquidity got taken out. There's no liquidity. So if you wanted to buy up like $100,000, which for a lot of people is nothing, there's people who are sitting with $20 million in their accounts on Pulsechain just doing jack shit with it. Sort of know how they act. Like, was anybody surprised when the Pulse price bounced off a sack rate like 3 or 4 times? Was anybody surprised by that? Nobody was surprised by that, because it's obviously somebody who's been around, who understands what everybody talks about, who understands the perceptions of the community. if there's somebody new coming in with $1 million, they have no idea what the sac rate was. They never sacrificed. They don't care. Like why for them, like that 30,301 price doesn't mean anything. So you can tell like whoever did that is around. Like they've been here. And as new people come in, you're going to see different patterns of behavior. You're going to see different assets valued different ways that you would not expect. And so keep all of that in mind. And a lot of times, the way the market, sort of handles that is it kind of resets itself. Like that's not an uncommon thing to happen. So just gotta keep that in mind, you guys. And like as good as it is to get a ton of new people in it, just understand. And for the long run, it's the best thing that can happen. I'm just letting you know that in a short term sort of scenario, in a shorter term, like there is the possibility that the market kind of corrects to adjust for new patterns and behavior, and then whatever we see on the other side of that. And I'm not saying this is going to be anytime soon. Like this could be months away. This could be many months away. Like we don't know. But at some point, it's very likely to happen. And, don't let that sort of like discourage you or break your faith. Just like understand what's actually happening there. And if you play that the right way, it'll be the best opportunity of probably a decade, besides, the Hex's first 10,000x, like something, or, Ethereum IPO or something.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I think Hex Love's in full retard mode right now because he
No,
won't stop throwing emojis.
he's the hype man, dude. And the numbers don't even make any sense to you anymore. And when you actually have to make very difficult decisions, having not just the plan, but having something that you can invest into and have a fulfilling life, whatever that is for you, it is a very good thing to have that planned out ahead of time. I'll just tell you guys that much. The people who don't have that, who don't have any better use for the money, end up not taking it. And you have to understand, like, even with Hex, the price fell anyway. It fell anyway. Like, the difference is who got it, who got all the dough. And a lot of the people who got it didn't do anything with it. Some people actually, contributed back to the community. Some people actually, made use of it, benefited others with their plunder, like, let's just say. But that's the number one thing. Like, if you don't have a use for the money, you won't use the money, and then you'll lose the money. I'm sorry to say that. We want the price to go up forever. It's just, and it could go up for years. Like, I'm not saying you need to rush. But that's kind of the ultimate scenario, is that you should be doing this to live like a truly abundant, fulfilled life and help as many other people as you possibly can. And that's why you're being rewarded. It's just how it goes. So I hope more people take advantage of that and turn around and do great things with it, and continue to participate and support others, because, like I said, this is the one thing where you could get generational wealth. You can create generational wealth multiple times in one lifetime. You can't do that with anything else. Like, this is it. So don't take it too seriously, but take it pretty seriously.
Can I make a point about the hex thing that you're saying?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
So I think since we had the fork, that I think a lot of the liquidity of Hex is now tied to Pulse, right? Whether it's eHex or pHex, right? So most of it's tied to Pulse. So liquidity bonding, when one side goes up, the other goes up. So I think for the best thing for Pulse is that it's a highly utilized network, meaning that there's a lot of users and a lot of transactions, a lot of use cases for the network in order to have value on the network. Also, bridged in coins, like we can get into that, that's a whole other discussion. But anyways, point of what I'm saying is that I think when you bring more network value, and yeah, like we can talk about, we could just buy Hex, stake Hex, that's fine. Like, and I hope more people know about that and learn about that, because I'm, obviously exposed, right? I have exposure and what have you. Anyhow, I think building a network is like a bigger, it's almost like there's a bigger use case for it, and in the future Hex could be a bigger use case than even the network itself. But I think that you get there first by building a network and getting more and more eyeballs on what you really like, which is Hex.
Activity is really good. I think obviously that's one of the biggest indicators of everything. That this is how I know for a fact that there's going to be a lot more protocols that are going to be opening their front ends to Pulse Chain. I think we're doing it the right way, where we're not just we're just paying them to do it, right? They're doing it because it makes business sense for them to do. And I think, you know, once that happens, like, we kind of open up those gateways to the rest of the world, and we see what this thing does. Like, you guys don't understand how lucky you were for months and months and months to be able to do whatever you wanted on this chain for nothing, for less than pennies. You could do whatever you wanted to do. Like, I don't know if it'll ever like go back to that, you know. So I hope you enjoyed it while we had it. But yeah, as this chain grows up, like, it's you know, it's going to evolve, and you know, the more protocols that get launched on it, and you know, it's hard to kind of value that, like, you know, at the time, I guess, to like see that as a good thing. But what's also about Pulsechain is, like, you guys got to see it. A lot of you got to see it from inception. You know, since it was just like an idea in Richard's head, through all the when Pulsechain memes, V1, V2, V3. You know, it's crazy. And I know nobody enjoyed the process of it, like, you know, especially if you had a lot of money sacked for it. But yeah, like, it's one of those things that would probably never happen again. And you know, I don't know. I always think it's kind of cool that we got to kind of experience it. And looking back on it after, you know, a nice rip, definitely feels a lot better. The way, honestly, the way Pulse like evolved, like, I think it's actually a good name for like, not, I don't want to say currency like a fiat, but I'm saying, like, it kind of makes sense. Like, you know what you're talking about when you say Pulse. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was a really good. It's a really good name. I think it caught on like really well. It's like smooth.
Yeah, and it's like the price of pulse. You get the pulse of the network. Like, price a lot of times is tied to people's emotions, right? When it goes up, they're happy. When it goes down, they're not happy. So it's like you get the pulse of the network with the price, and it's bonded to everything, so you can kind of figure out, you know, what's doing what usually.
Well,
It all ties back to Richard Hart, though.
Richard
Richard Hart,
had to use
pulse,
the on that price
pulse.
chart.
Yes,
He
Hart,
got that beat
pulse.
going. No, I think it just
Correct.
makes sense.
Correct. And then what links to that? You're pulsating because of your energy that we're getting and receiving through the network, dude. Like, we gotta, dude. It's amazing.
Now that you said that, Jack Levin's going to listen to this and come out with Throb next week, or Throb.
Rob sounds too much like Rob.
And then when Jack Levin comes up with Rob, he's going to create a Viagra token.
Yesterday,
He's
he
doing
made a bet
something.
with Gary Cardone that he was gonna buy 250. Like, so if Gary Funding Jim bought 250K worth of Hex and Gary Cardone bought 250K worth of Bitcoin, whichever outperformed the most, they would have swapped their positions for each other's position.
Wait, is this the thing they bet? They bet.
So, like,
No, that's not. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
well,
Gary's
they said they were
trying to
gonna talk
push it.
Oh,
afterwards.
that's
They didn't do it
he
live on
pitched that.
stream.
I would pitch
He's
that
trying
too
to
because I
make
know
it
freaking
happen.
Paul
They're
can
still gonna
outperform
talk on
Bitcoin.
Tuesday and Thursday of this
That's a
week. They're
great
still
idea.
gonna talk about it in extensive. Like, they're gonna be in a space this week talking only about Hex.
Was it Gary Cardone or Grant that he was into space with? I heard it was the
Gary, it's his
Both.
Bitcoin
twin brother,
Bitcoin guy.
Gary.
Both. Grant
Yeah,
Cardone
He was in
and
there
Grant
with
Grant
Paul.
pops
No,
in on
no,
Gary a lot.
Grant left. Grant said Hex was a Grant Cardone. Cardone said Hex sounded. What did he say? I forgot his exact word. Sounded like a
Who cares what you say? He's not.
A
He's not a
scam.
crypto guy.
He's
psyop.
probably
Yeah,
right.
psyop. He
He's
said
a
it
Gary's
smart
sounded like a
no
guy.
Grant's
psyop.
a real
A
estate guy.
scam.
Grant and Gary are both well aware of Hex. This is all just a show.
No, they're not.
They have to be well
Grant
aware of it. If
said
I
last.
promise you, if
Grant
one
said
twin knows
yesterday
about it, the
he
other
don't
one
know
knows also.
about Hex.
He's lying.
I think they're bullshit. They're lying, dude.
He's
They do
lying.
know
Space
about
Ghost.
I know for a fact he's
Do
well
you
aware.
do you realize Tristan and Andrew Tate know a lot about bullshit and Hex? Like, these are the people that, like, you know, Funding Jim has our best. He's our best representative of Pulse
I think so
Chain
too.
in
Is
terms
he?
of.
These people dump out, like, they're going to. We want people who actually understand the value of this, and they're not doing it sheerly to make another $1 million they don't care about.
I see what you're saying. I do agree with the whole chart being slow, steady wins the race, because that is absolutely a thing you have to think about. But we do need people coming in, and I feel like there's enough degenerates to dump on their biggest buys. If they are stupid enough to make a market order to push the price, then yeah, it'll probably more beneficial for them to slowly buy and just provide liquidity and be a responsible seller. But let's assume they're not going to do that. Let's assume they're going to just fat finger market buy. I don't think there's going to be too many people complaining about the big green candle. And I think there's going to be enough dum-dums that are going to dump into that for them to fill their bag even more. Because if they have
you guys forget how much money is actually out there. Like, so this little top that we just had, and this might not be a top, I'm just saying, like, this little local, like, this, like, you know, what it stayed up on Pulse, like 30125, almost got to 3013, right? People were slamming in 40, 50, $60,000 buys, $20,000 buys. Like, where were they across this entire chart? You guys forget that there's already so much money here. It's just that they weren't buying when the prices were low, when the candles were red. As soon as they turned green, like, that was the craziest price action I've ever seen on Pulsechain this morning. It was 40 grand up, 20 grand down, 30 grand in,
I
50
wasn't
grand
watching it
down.
live.
Like,
Is that
it
what it
was
looked
just
like?
insane. I couldn't understand what was happening because I was getting alerts that there were such big buys coming through and there was such big sells. They were just like neutralizing
Okay,
each
so
other.
you're
It was
proving my
just the
point, though. There's
craziest shit I've ever
degenerates that'll
seen.
sell into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, people are always going to sell, right? I'm just saying, like, the smart time to go sink 40, 50 grand into it is like when the price is low, right? When the price is already pumped like a 2x in a couple of days and people still have the conviction to go. I mean, people are slamming 100 grand into it. Like, it's just,
Well,
that's
how
what
do
I'm
we
saying, is
know
like,
when
if you think we need their
I could
money,
probably
you're
tell you why
wrong.
they're doing that, because it printed a reversal indicator on my chart. So that's when I would probably dump the big money in, especially in a low. So we only just got a confirmation of a reversal within the past week. Other than that, we've had just downtrending. We haven't had confirmation of an uptrend at all. We just got the reversal confirmation this week. This is when the money's going to come in.
No, but listen, we had a 3x on Hex. We had here, let me give you like specific dates because people forget when the chart's in the low numbers, it's actually much easier to like make a double. Like, so from October 12th to October 24th, that was a 75% run on Pulsechain, right? Like, even that little pump that we had going into New Year's, you know, that was at least like a 40%. The problem is the chart just did nothing at all. Nothing at all from August to October. That was the problem, you know. But after October, there was a 2x, almost a 2x on Hex, or on probably maybe Pulsex, I forget. Here, I'll tell you what it was on Hex.
There's a 3x on Pulse. There's, I want to say, at least a 4.5x on Pulse X. Hex, P Hex went down to like 0.206.
Yeah, listen, like, well, here's the point: is like, if you think we need their money, we actually do not. So like, there's already so much money juiced into it. If you think we need their audience, maybe that's where I would maybe agree with you, because it gets so much more exposure that it's gonna lead people to just better products, understanding DeFi better, being in a community that's not just solely out there to hustle them out of their money. Even though, you know, the way markets work, like, some people win, some people lose. You can't you know, code that out of the, you know, you can't code that out of the market. So that's where I would agree with you, is that, like, if you were to invite Gary Wood to a conference, to like a 10x conference, I would be stoked. But if it's just like, tell me about Hex, it's like, well, you know, we've told you 6 times, like, it's, or, you know, about Pulsechain or something. So I don't know. That's where I would kind of differentiate. But I don't know. What do you think of that?
I love how you said the audience. I didn't even consider that, but that's even so much better of a point because that does so much more than just a single person. Let's just say, for example, I mean, we all know what that means. I don't need to explain it, especially for Grant, because he's a real estate guy. I'm a real estate guy. I'm still a real estate guy, even though I disowned it a few years ago. It's like in my blood. I've been a 20-year real estate guy. It's how I found crypto. It's a mindset. You have to have an investor's mindset to be a real estate guy. So those people, his audience is probably the most valuable audience out of. He could put nothing in, and I would still want his attention because of that reason alone. That I overlooked entirely until you just said that.
Well, isn't it ironic how he's doing a 10x conference and it brings in millions and millions of dollars every year? Sells. He said it was like tens of millions of dollars sold, like, for the courses, for the venues, for all of that stuff. We're doing 10,000x. We 10x his 10x and 10x that. Like this is what we're doing, right? So if he's not interested in that, like it's hard to believe that's genuine. So yeah, man, like I think it actually falls really in line with his brand. Like he just hasn't seen it yet, and someone's got to explain that to him.
Well, if his brother is involved, and his brother's more of a blockchain guy than Gary, or I'm sorry, I get him confused because Grant is more the real estate guy, and he had, as far as I know, he showed no interest in crypto at all. And then Gary was just kind of come out as a Bitcoin guy, and I think he's just kind of learning Bitcoin because he's seen what it did last time, and he probably sees this as his claim to fame, like real estate is to his brother. But I promise you, from any twin that I've ever met, they definitely are very much comparing their knowledge in whatever their profession is, and they're probably competing against each other, which is really good for us if one of them is in crypto, especially if one of them is involved with Pulsechain. I mean, he's excited about Bitcoin. Can you imagine when he
I think
realizes there's a whole world of better coins out there?
I think one of them is a little bit more risk averse, and the other one is trying to show him up a little bit more. So I think like because Grant has had so much success with the real estate and the programs and stuff, I think Gary is incentivized to kind of like one up him, and the only real like asymmetric advantage like he can deduce is crypto, right? Because he's not going to sell more properties than Grant. He's not going to fill more seats at arenas than Grant. But
I agree
he can find
100%.
something that takes him to the moon, and then all this hard work that Gary did, that Grant did, like
Dude,
Gary
what
will
if he
always be
actually
able to kind of
outperforms
like
his brother? It's
that's
possible. We've
the
seen the
race.
numbers. We know what they can do.
Tristan and Andrew too, dude. It's just how it is, man. And brothers, they compete. So I don't know, man. Like I think Gary is a little bit of a better sort of investment, but you have to remember that Grant does the whole like venture capital thing with the properties, and he has like fiduciary responsibility.